What would a role-playing game written specifically for me look like? Welcome to my channel. I focus on tabletop role-playing games, video games, and science fiction. I've been playing role-playing games for a very long time, over 40 years. So I have some opinions about various things, and this is a question that was sort of asked in the RPG Brigade on Facebook, is what would an RPG that was written specifically for you look like? So I'm going to list some criteria that is a little bit different. And this is what I want in an RPG game. And first and foremost is I want to be able to find players and game masters. It could be the best and most best written, most well designed, one that I love, but if I can't find players to play with it, what good does it do? It just sits on the shelf. And that's my first requirement, is that it's a game that is widely available and has a lot of people interested in it. And that forgives a lot of sins. That's primarily why I stick with Dungeons and Dragons, because Dungeons and Dragons is, shall we say, almost mainstream now. You find a lot of people playing Dungeons and Dragons. When you say that, that's familiar. When you mention something else that may not be as familiar. Pathfinder isn't even as familiar as Dungeons and Dragons. It's got the mind share. There's the largest number of players for that. That's why I tend to play it, because I can find a variety of players and a variety of game masters for that. So that's my first criteria. My second criteria is I would like combat to be fast and furious. I want it to be just roll dice and you're done with it so that you can get on to the adventure. A dirty little secret about me, I played Mass Effect as a video game. The comparison to the video game Mass Effect 3. And I was playing through on normal settings. I'm not the greatest I don't have the greatest dexterity when it comes to video games. I enjoy them, I've written them, but I don't have the greatest dexterity. And I finally decided I bumped it down to easy level because I was interested in the story, which was disappointing, but rather than the combat. And for those of you who've seen some of my videos, that's more interesting to me, is the story, not the combat. So combat is probably necessary. You need to have some sort of combat mechanism, but it should be optional. You shouldn't have to have a combat every session, and when you do, it should be decided quickly. Okay? So that's the second requirement, is I want combat to be simple and easy and resolved quickly. Resolved quickly is the most important thing. I'm almost tempted to say, oh, let's roll a single die and the person who rolls highest wins. That's about it. But there are other reasons to have a little bit more detailed combat than that, but it's there. The other thing that I want is I want the rules to be simple enough that you can memorize them, basically. That you don't need to pull out the rule book and search through and say, on page 25 it says this, but on page 283 it says this, and somebody else says, oh, but in this other book on page 47, and then you have to sit down and figure out what the rule meaning of that is. That, to me, takes away from the pleasure of the game. And I know that there's some people saying online, but I want to be able to come up with solutions that don't need me to go looking at the rules. That yes, they're there for those really, really weird scenarios. And what I mean by that is that I should only have to pull out the rule book like once every 10 sessions. Not 10 times per session, not 3 times per session, not once every other session. I only want to have to refer to the rule book after 10 sessions, once every 10 sessions. Do I ever need to look at the rule books? Because something really unusual has come up and I need to take a look at the rule books. So that's what I want in a game. That it's intuitively obvious how to answer the question with die rolls or whatever. Also would like a game that works with any genre, that I can have run science fiction, or I can run a post-apocalyptic, or I can run like Metamorphosis Alpha with a generation ship, or I can run my standard fantasy campaign. Those are the criteria that I want in a game. But the first and foremost is I can find players and I can find game masters, which has a hidden requirement. It's cheap or free. Because if it's free, people can get it. Now, I almost think that free is a bad idea, because then people put no value in it. I think ideally the game should be very inexpensive, under $10, say around $5 for the complete rule book that covers everything. Like I've got up on the shelf over there the Revised Traveler, which is this massive tome. Something like that in a $5 book, but that violates the concept that it should be simple enough to memorize the rules. But it has guidelines for how to apply the rules to everything. I mean, I look at GRUPS, for those of you, well, I looked at GRUPS very early on, and there were some nice things about GRUPS, but I just never got into GRUPS. And I never could find enough people interested in playing GRUPS. And with online, that's not as important today, but that would be important. You can find more people, but I still like the ability to find a lot of players. If I go someplace, like say I go to a convention, I go to World Science Fiction conventions, I've been to 14 of them, and if I go to one of those, I'd like to be able to, if I want to have a party, I want to be able to find people that are familiar with the system I'm talking about. Which brings up the concept is I want it portable. I remember DMing where I would go to somebody else's house and I had two big plastic case things that I could put the books in. They were the designed for their plastic file folder things, and it was lugging all these books, which are heavy, to go game, because you had to have all the rule books. So I want something this lightweight. Now, if that means if it's electronic, that's great. But I also want to be able to play it where that may not be an option. I'd like to be able to go camping and not require electricity, but to have a game around a campfire at night. This is a perfect setting for the ghost story type adventure, where you've got you're acting by a campfire and you're playing the game there. I want it so that you don't have to even have dice. It's nice, it's useful, but what happens is that I want to think about that setting. I want to be able to play it around a campfire with a bunch of people having some fun, and it's portable. And it's easy to remember the rules. You don't get into these rule lawyer situations, but you just play it. So that's what I want in an RPG. Now, have I got conflicting requirements in there? Probably. The fact that it's easy, and I don't know if anybody can come up with a game that handles all those scenarios and is rich enough that you get a lot of people playing it. But you look back at other games, let's look at in the game world, Monopoly, even Risk, which came out by Parker Brothers, which had comparatively a lot of rules to that, and some of the other games that I've played that were interesting, that got quite a few players playing them, but nothing stuck around like Dungeons and Dragons has. So that's what I want in an RPG. So I'd like to hear what you think about that. Can you make any recommendations for a game that fits my requirements? That's easy to find players. It's easy to find, easy to carry with you. Its combat is fast, and simple rules that you can almost memorize, and it works with any genre. And if I have that, then we can tell stories. And that's the key with what I want. And that's what I'm looking for. So give me your comments to this. Thank you for watching my video. I look forward to learning what you think about this video. Let me know in the comments below. I appreciate all your comments. If you like the video, give it a thumbs up. If you don't like the video, give me a thumbs down. I appreciate both forms of feedback. If you're new here and would like to subscribe, you can click on the icon on the left. If you're interested, there's more content on the right.